Hi everyone, Jonathan here with another What Is This Weapon? And it's one of those occasional mystery items where we actually don't know the answer to the eternal question, what is this weapon? We have some thoughts about it though, and we want to show it to you anyway because it's kind of fascinating. It has some sneaky beaky connections perhaps, and it's mechanically quite interesting as well, although quite simple. So this is one of those things that you find on the shelf like your predecessors before you and scratch your head and wonder what the heck it is. Thanks right out of the gate to Freddy Clifford, an excellent researcher that we've worked with. He's helped us out. He suggested or pointed out the similarities between this and another semi-mystery object that has much more of a story to it. I'll get back to that once we've had a proper look at this piece. So it is a sort of pistol-carbine, as you can see, a detachable stock. Right, we can take that off right now. But clearly the idea is this is I would say more of a takedown weapon than a stocked pistol. It's designed to be used with the stock, but it's a thumb wheel. We back that off and we finagle, there we go. So it's a hook at the top and a sort of bump at the bottom, somewhat unconventional. The hook hooks into the frame at the top, and then you operate the thumb wheel to cinch it all together. Really quite wobbly when it's on, not amazing, but this is, not really a spoiler to say this, kind of a homemade thing, albeit to a very high standard. Either made as a project in a workshop or a factory, or made at home or in a shed. Blokes in sheds again. The buttstock is, the metal part is fabricated, no markings, and the evidence of heat treatment, but not finish, I don't think, unlike the rest of the gun. But anyway, the stock is actually bodged together, well, quite nicely bodged together, from an LP08 Luger, artillery Luger buttstock. And we still have the crowned letter there on the stock that you'll see on artillery Luger stock, because that's what it is. And then they've spliced in some bits of wood and pinned it to the sort of armature of the stock there. Jumping to the other end, elephant in the room, yes, this is meant to be suppressed. It's an interrupted thread type pair of lugs, essentially, with a collar or a shoulder, I should say, there, and then a properly crowned muzzle. You can see from the muzzle that this is small caliber. It is, in fact, a .22, a 22 caliber, 5.6 millimeters measured, but we don't know the caliber. It's not 2.2 long rifle. It's centerfire, as you will. I'll show you proof of that when we take this apart. But trust me, for the moment, that it is centerfire, and it's a case length of 24.8 millimeters to the neck. It's a straight-walled case and a rimmed cartridge. So we have this dropping block to insert those mystery cartridges that we don't know what they are, and that's a push button, sprung push button with grooves. So you probably press with the thumb. Works obviously with the stock fitted as well. Press that down, drops the block. Now that cocks the gun as well, and I'll show you why a bit later. It also levers the extractor to the rear to extract the fired case, and you can see there from that recessed ring there, a rimmed cartridge, just like a revolver cylinder or a single shot 2.2, which is kind of what this is, only we don't know what cartridge type. Yeah, don't know. I've been through the lists of 2.2/5mm caliber arms, and I can't find anything that has a case length of 24mm and a straight-walled case that's centerfire and rimmed. It's an unknown cartridge, and the pattern room from which collection this comes, MOD pattern room, also did not know what the cartridge type was. Haven't cast the chamber, but we can access it well enough to figure out what it should be. We just can't find a match. So yes, dropping block that cocks the system and allows you to insert a single round, close it back up like that, at which point we have a grip safety here as well on the front, not least because the stock would block the rear grip safety. So we have to grasp that to fire it. Now we then have to cock our trigger because this thing is a set trigger, double set triggers, and there's no means of firing it with a longer trigger pull. all you can do, and it's so light that it sometimes doesn't hold. So this is rather temperamental, but set the trigger with the rear trigger, and then the lightest of touches sets this off. It sets itself off sometimes. But the idea is you've got, as one writer called it, a breath trigger, where you breathe on it and it goes off. So you can't just pull through and fire it off. You have to pre-cock the trigger, and then I'll do it once more, lightest touch. Now there is an adjustment screw there, so we could dial that in to be a bit less temperamental, but since we don't intend to go out and assassinate anyone with this, there's probably no point in adjusting it as long as I am able to demonstrate it to you. We don't want to dry fire it any more than I just have for you good people. So we have 2 takedown pins that are really designed for punching out with a drift, which we'll do in a moment, and that drops out the trigger mechanism. The scope, so this is an OIG, please forgive my pronunciation, scope, Berlin, it says on the side, so German. This is definitely a German scope. And it is a 4-power magnification. Well, as we usually do, we will try and come in with the camera and capture the sight picture, but if the lighting gods are against us, trust me when I say it's 2 bars coming in from the side and a pointed post coming up from the bottom, standard into First World War to World War II sniper scope or hunting scope, whatever you would like to call it. Adjustment on the top there, and focusing on this ring here. And that is mounted, not brilliantly, to the barrel with, I believe, silver solder. That's probably a repair, though, to the original brazing, probably. So these mounts are brazed onto the cylindrical tube of the barrel. The bottom halves, and then the top half, it hooks in at the back, and then it's a pin spanner to secure it at the front. I'm not going to mess with it any further. As you can see, at some point someone's put a cable tie on there to hold this broken solder of the rear mount in place, and it's kind of happy as it is, so I'm not going to mess with it. Wooden walnut grips or stocks just screwed onto the side as though it were a pistol. And that is kind of it. Nicely blued. This is really nicely ground, polished and finished. And then a really nice bluing job, reminiscent of the early C96 broom handles. Does feel quite German. Of the craftsmanship, the finish, the German scope, the German buttstock. This is German, or it's somebody trying to make it look German. One of the two. That is an 8-inch barrel, thereabouts. Presumably measured in millimeters by whoever made this. So before we get into the mythology around these two, this and its kind of probable stablemate, let's take this apart.
A few moments later.
There we are. So we have a rear takedown pin. There's a detent system there, a little ball detent inside that channel, and a groove in the rear pin. And we've done this off camera because these need tapping out with a drift. The front pin does not have that detent. That's probably why it's so stiff, actually. And so they're out the way. And at that point, we can gently remove. This really is very nicely made. Try not to. There we go. Now, on doing that, we find deep in there, possibly not visible on camera, is a tiny number 2. So we have it on our database as serial number 2. If that's the case, then this is the second one of probably 2 ever made. We don't know. The metal, you can see the barrel going all the way to the rear there. And this is pretty much a bullpup pistol. One of a handful of true bullpup pistols by the definition I had to come up with in my book. This is inarguably a bullpup pistol because it has the bolt well to the rear, breech face well to the rear of even the majority of the grip, which is the way you have to define these things. Otherwise you end up with nearly all pistols ever made as bullpups. Anyway, really nicely made. Oh, sorry, I should say there is, the number 2 is on the barrel externally as well, underneath. So 2 on the barrel, a 2 concealed on the frame. So at the very least, they are assembly numbers, and perhaps they are serial numbers. But if you look in there, you see the barrel running all the way to the back, and then the sort of support structure of the frame wrapped around it. Really, really good work. And then right at the back, of course, we have our breech block. And if we drop that down, we can now, because the trigger mechanism's off, push down further, and out drops our breech block. And probably not much to see down there, but we have properly cut rifling grooves in there. Haven't checked the twist rate or even counted the grooves, but I'm not sure it will help us very much to do that, other than for cataloguing purposes. We do need to finish off at some point. The breech block shows definitively that is a centerfire cartridge. There's your firing pin hole. That lines up dead center with the breech. So it's a centerfire round. There's our release button. So pressing down on that allows us to drop the block. And then the other main thing is this sort of almost button-looking feature here. If I press in on that, out pops the firing pin. So we have a backward-acting hammer, essentially, that strikes that and sends with a lever. The lever acts forward like that and smacks the firing pin forward into the primer. So quite an interesting backwards firing system there. How that relates to the trigger mechanism, well, we have a sort of cocking mechanism here. There's that backward acting hammer, sprung, quite strongly sprung, as you might imagine. And that's the cocking system. And that interfaces, that goes up in there like this. And as this drops down, it's hard to simulate when it's out of the gun, but the hook attaches to that part in there. And the breech block coming down does what I'm just going to do with my finger, pushes the hammer forward and clicks it into place on the sear. This is the sear bar, I guess, or trigger bar. And then what the set triggers are doing, as a lot of set triggers do, is essentially what we're doing is spring loading a little mini sear to then fly up and smack this bar to release the hammer to the rear, in this case. So cock your trigger, essentially. It's not going to work very well out of the gun. Cock your trigger, and then there you go. See that go? I'll do it once more. My hand was in the way, annoyingly. So, recock. I need three hands for this. Set the trigger, and almost too quick for the eye to see, but a spring-loaded bar flies up, hits the sear bar, pushing it up like this, and that releases the linear hammer here, because there's like a lug and then a notch in the hammer. That lifts up, allowing this to fly to the rear and hit that to pivot the lever, to hit the firing pin, to fire the primer. Kind of simple and complex all at the same time. The grip safety works like, so if we recock it again, when the grip safety is not depressed, there's a stirrup that sits over the sear bar. So it can't fire off, it can't pop up to release the hammer. You have to depress the grip safety to then even be able to, well, actually, we can pre-cock the trigger, talking in terms of cocking the trigger, strictly accurate, but you get the gist. It's gone off on its own, this needs adjusting. So you can pull the rear trigger with the grip safety out, but to actually fire it off, you see that will fire off the trigger mechanism, but it cannot trip the sear bar. So not very convenient. In theory, you can, like if you had it, you'd have to have a very loose grip on this thing to fall foul of this. But in theory, you could cock the trigger, fire the trigger, and it can't interface with the rest of the mechanism, so it won't fire the weapon. Probably not something you find in a factory-produced or mass-produced firearm, but you'll find it in this. That is about it. It really is nicely made. You can see how much machining has gone into this. They've machined away so much steel to create this. This is not wrapped sheet steel. This is a solid bar of steel that's been machined away to an inch of its life, leaving a ton of negative space. Yes, the barrel is then pressed into that, but this is a lot of machining, precision machining work using factory tools. Very thin metal is left, and the two sides of that frame come down between the grips, between the grip frame and the grips, nestling in between there. It's quite a lot of precision work there. We could pop the grips off, but they don't really reveal anything more, having done that some years ago already. So we'll pop this back together and I will explain to you a bit more about the mystery. Now, with this thing back together, without its missing suppressor, sadly, this, weirdly enough, has a distant connection to video games. Black Ops 7, no, not this gun, but its big brother, the Charles Dampfer carabiner, the SDK, suppressed carbine. It's called the SDK. Somebody went Googling deep in the internet and found this bizarre looking thing. Well, I'll try and find a picture of it we can show you. It's not this, but it has multiple points of comparison with this. That thing is a even more bullpup than this. Carbine, not a pistol carbine, if that makes sense, with a Luger magazine feed in the buttstock and a weird barrel passing all the way through it's like heavily wooden stocked, very chunky looking thing. It has the same scope, it has the same scope mounts, it has the same suppressor attachment system, it has the same double set trigger system, and it's also from Germany. So, weird connections there. Thanks again to Freddy for pulling that together now, and also for digging out some old material on this. Because this thing, apart from now being known to gamers in Black Ops 7, that thing, not this thing, became sort of notorious in a minor way for allegedly being a Hitler assassination carbine. So if that was for assassinating Hitler, who is this for assassinating? Well, we don't know. But the SDK was definitely not a Hitler assassination weapon. It was actually a fraud. The SDK was discovered by Lieutenant Colonel James P. Atwood, who, apart from being a US Army officer, also had CIA connections. That's pretty much confirmed. He was operating in, before the CIA was created, in the newly divided up Germany, in Berlin, and claimed to have found this SDK carbine in some rubble, along with a more damaged suppressed carbine that no one has ever seen. It's not this. It doesn't make sense for it to be this. They're both described as rifles. And this thing then gets an article giving it this elaborate provenance as an assassination weapon, and this story about how it's been found. Now, the article is written by Atwood himself, so he's providing provenance for something that just appears out of nowhere. It's extremely suspicious. I'm confident in calling it a fraud because it just doesn't make any sense as what it's purported to be. It's possible that this isn't just some amazing gunsmith that he found in a Berlin backstreet and bought these from his window or asked him to make them. It's actually possible he had some of these sneaky beaky looking assassination weapons made to then come up with backstories for them, to then sell them for a lot of money. I don't quite buy that because they're so sort of idiosyncratic and specific. They feel like the heartfelt work of a gun designer and gun maker that really does think he's doing something that might be of use to somebody. Maybe even for covert, like quiet hunting, poaching, don't know, we can't say. But you can think of it as an assassination weapon if you like. The ammunition, the 9mm ammunition in that case, was alleged to be cyanide-filled dum-dum ammunition, which again makes this whole thing pretty suspicious, conspiracy theory level stuff, to be honest. Then again, these two or three, if there really were two that he found, have to have been made for some purpose. The suspicion is that he has had these made or has found them in Berlin. The best speculation we can offer in counter to the Hitler assassination rifle thing, because if that's that, what's this? Is that they might have been made immediately post-war by a Berlin gunmaker, now lost. He doesn't sign his work. I guess he wouldn't if it really was for some sort of covert action. And to be fair, I'm not sure why else you would make these two firearms. They really do seem to have been made for covert operation, this at rather closer distance with its weaker cartridge and short barrel, low pressure, and the SDK with its 9mm Luger round. They probably were conceived of as assassination weapons for some purpose. Now, the only history we have, really, is that Herb Woodend of the pattern room, the custodian of the pattern room, did so much work for this collection, had been told, apparently, that this was recovered in Afghanistan. There's an article that on Small Arms Review about this, and the author was told by Herb, who I sadly didn't get to meet, that this had been recovered in Afghanistan. So there would have to be an intelligence services link there. So we got this in, or they got this in 1988. If it did come from Afghanistan, well, that's Soviet invasion era, not American invasion era or Allied invasion era. So that would have to realistically be recovered by CIA and transferred to British intelligence and from there to the pattern room. But it's all pretty hazy. We really don't know. I think this is made by the same guy as the SDK, sometime in post-war, probably Berlin. But all we have is the made-up story by Atwood. And we probably can't go any further than that. But if anyone can find a match for this cartridge type, we'll throw up the details for you on the screen so you can go hunting for it. If anyone somehow knows where the suppressor might be, or if you have any ideas, please do. As always, let us know. Put it in a comment, or if you really want us to make sure you see it, email us via the inquiries page on the website. Thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, do like, leave a comment, subscribe, all of the usual YouTube stuff. Check out our various museums, our website, our online shop. And please do come and see our Easter joust. We are famous for our wonderful jousting that we hold here at our Leeds site. So please do check out the website, check out the socials, and come along and join us for a bit of jousting. Whatever you do, guys, please do come and join us again next week for another What Is This Weapon?